So, uh, Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Retirement 101, 3 Steps to Prepare for Retirement. My name is Catherine Wall, and I'm a Partner Experience Manager here at GreenPath. So just a little about me. I've been with GreenPath for 15 years, working first as a counsellor, and then the last 11 years working with our financial institutions that partner with GreenPath to bring financial wellness services to their employees and the communities they serve. Joining me today is Dawn Watson. Dawn, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Catherine. So I too work as a Partner Experience Manager at GreenPath. I've been with GreenPath for just over 33 years. I've had the pleasure of working with many individuals and families to help them achieve their financial goals. And I'm excited to be here with Catherine to discuss the topic of saving for retirement.
It's great to see you, Dawn. So before we get started into the webinar topic today, I do want to share the following disclaimer. The goal of this presentation is to provide some general education on the topic of retiring and investing. Information provided is not intended as financial advice. The presenters are not financial advisors. For specific financial investing advice, please contact a professional financial advisor. So now that we've covered the legalese, let's go over our agenda. Step 1, we're going to be covering preparing for retirement. In step 2, we'll review investment options and risks. Step 3, we're going to focus on knowing your number and Social Security benefits. And then we're going to finish out the webinar with a Q&A. So again, remember to submit your questions under all panelists, and we'll get back to those at the end of the webinar. Now, for those who are new to GreenPath, I just want to give you a quick introduction to us. We are a national nonprofit organization that provides financial education, such as today's webinar, and financial counseling. Our mission is to help people lead financially healthy lives, or as I like to say, we want to help people get value from every dollar they earn and spend. So as we go through the webinar today, we're going to share various free GreenPath resources that you can use to help yourself prepare for retirement. So let's get to step 1. Dawn, would you like to kick us off by talking about preparing for retirement?
Yes, great. Thanks, Catherine. So we are going to start with discussing your retirement budget. Not your neighbors or best friends, not some ideal retirement budget that you might pull off of Google. We're going to walk through preparing your retirement story and create an idea of what you would like your retirement to look like. So Catherine, I know you're getting ready to retire soon. How long ago did you start preparing?
Dawn, great question. So my husband and I started our detailed planning about 5 years ago, I would say. That's specifically looking at our budget and working to understand how much money we would need to pay, basically to pay our regular living expenses. So yeah, about 5 years or so.
Great. So in order to set ourselves up for a successful retirement, we really need to first start by understanding what kind of retirement do we want? What does a great retirement look like for you? If you have a financial partner, you of course will want to include them and their input into this as well. So do you have a bucket list or things that you really want to do? For example, maybe you want to travel. Are there hobbies that you want to start? So really take time to think about this and write it down. It's going to be very important to have these ideas because this will help you start to understand the kind of expenses you're going to need as you're planning for the retirement. So Catherine, you started planning, you said about 5 years ago. How did you and your spouse discuss the priorities that you both have?
So I will say, Dawn, now this is not a typical retirement planning goal, but one of our major items on our retirement bucket list was actually having a place for my husband to work on car projects. We considered moving, but we decided to stay in our current home close to our family and friend group. Great news, the extension, which is actually has more than doubled the size of my husband's current garage, is almost completed. But another goal was, obviously I have a bit of a funny accent. We want to be able to travel back to England more. So we had some travel in our budget as well. So we actually created, as part of our retirement budget, we actually created an entertainment element in our budget to cover that type of thing, the travel, etc.
Great. And that's exactly what we're talking about, is what is your version, making sure that you're incorporating those things in. So now you've been thinking about what your ideal retirement might look like. Now you're going to want to set some goals to work towards achieving those what you want it to look like. You want to be specific on as many factors as you can about those goals. So a goal might be you want to retire when you're 65 and you want to travel. So think about how frequently do you want to do that? How many trips per year would you like to take? How many number of years are you anticipating that you'll want to do that? And estimate what you think each trip is going to be. I'm sure you'll have some that are going to be more costly than others. So just kind of get an idea. You'll need this amount to help you create that retirement budget. How much would you want to set aside in order to accomplish that goal of travel? Of course, you're going to want to make sure you fill in the numbers based on those goals, but it's important to know your numbers to really set yourself up for success. Next, you're going to want to determine a way to measure your progress in saving enough money to reach the goals. Think about how you might track it within the overall plan as you prepare for retirement. Maybe this plan is to talk to your financial advisor once a year, and then as you get closer to that retirement goal, twice a year or more frequently. Finally, make sure the goals are realistic. You want to set yourself up for success and minimize any disappointment. Catherine, would you share what you have been doing to ensure your finances are in line with your goals?
I don't, absolutely. So one of our key exercises was living on our forecasted retirement budget before my husband actually retired. We wanted to find out if we had underestimated or overestimated expenses. And I got to say, it was a great exercise and it prompted some changes to the forecasted budget. We've also spent time researching the cost of Medicare and health insurance for myself because I'm going to likely retire before I qualify for Medicare.
All right, well, thank you. So in order to help you think about the goals, we want to stress that your goals may change over time. Your health and mobility may change as you're going through retirement, and your financial situation might change. So be prepared to update and adjust those goals as time goes on. Maybe you've been working really hard for many years and you haven't had the opportunity to travel. And again, maybe that's one of those goals. Typically, that first years of retirement, they're going to be considered your go-go years. So you'll be busy working on that bucket list. You may have more money actually going out during these initial years of retirement than you previously had prior to retirement as you're working towards those goals. Maybe you are traveling, spending more time with activities with your family and friends, taking on projects like the garage at your home and that you never had time for. So this is something that you're going to want to factor into your spending plan. How much additional funds might be going out on those initial years. So that next decade, you're going to find yourself most likely slowing down and are more like the slow go years. You may have completed those projects, hit all of your travel destinations, and you may not be spending as much money as you did in that first decade. And then finally, we have the no-go years. So when you forecast this area of your retirement journey, you're going to want to probably factor in more healthcare costs. You may need more assistance to remain in your home, or you may need to move into an assisted living facility. You will likely be paying a lot of money out of pocket to do that. Per seniorliving.org, assisted living costs can range anywhere from $51,000 per year to over $100,000 per year, depending on where you live. So how do you account for all these changes? Not only is it important to project what your expenses might look like, but also your income, which we are going to discuss as we continue. So we have this graphic. We thought this was a really great image that really reflects what we were just talking about. However, you'll keep in mind, this may not be your retirement phases. Everyone will experience it a little differently. So it's important to consider changes as you're experiencing this throughout that journey. So now that we have some idea of your goals and the potential needs that you may have in retirement, it's time to think about the budget. So the first step is to consider your income sources. For most people, there are 4 main sources of income that people might have: your Social Security benefits, employer-provided retirement accounts. Think of your 401k or something similar, your personal savings, and then maybe you plan to work a side job or you are starting a small business that's going to generate income for you. For some, you may also have a pension benefit where you'll be guaranteed income during retirement based on a predetermined formula. Pensions are still pretty common in the public sector, with about 86% of government workers having access to them, compared to just 15% of the private sector workers. And this was according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So next you're going to think about your expenses. So your fixed expenses would be your mortgage or rent, car loan, insurance premiums, payments towards your debts. The amount you pay out towards these expenses don't change much from month to month. That doesn't mean that they're not changing. So you can estimate how much you have in the past and factor what you're anticipating as you continue to build out your retirement budget. So as you're working on this, think about your debt obligations. Is it going to be difficult to retire if you have outstanding debt balances? If it is, you may want to consider a strategy to work towards paying them off. This can be extremely important if you're planning to retire in the near future. So one of GreenPath's certified counselors can help you determine your options and how the goal of reducing or even eliminating that debt can work into your current spending plan as you're working towards that goal of retirement. So next you want to think about your variable expenses. Variable expenses are likely going to fluctuate on a monthly basis, but our expenses you may have consistently month to month. Some of these expenses are things you might choose to spend money on for quality of life, but you could also consider making adjustments based on circumstances. For instance, your hobbies or your entertainment. So this is going to be like groceries, gas, utilities, medical expenses. You're going to probably have those fairly regular throughout your retirement phase. And then finally, we have our periodic expenses. They're a little more challenging to budget for. These are items you likely won't have every month, but you may experience these expenses from time to time. You don't want to forget them, as they may have a significant impact on your budget if you didn't factor them in. So you can review spending or estimate those future costs. Divide what you've previously done by 12 and enter that number into your projected budget. So especially, again, if you're planning to have your home paid off, you may have those incorporated into your mortgage. So your property taxes are now something that you're going to need to set aside for, the gift season that we're getting ready to approach, your car registrations and car repairs, which can be significant, unfortunately. So now that you've been estimating your numbers, let's put it all together to determine what a retirement plan may look like. As I briefly mentioned earlier, you're going to want to know your numbers. This will allow you to reevaluate if you need to make adjustments, which may include saving more money, adjusting when you plan to retire, or reviewing what your retirement picture looks like. It is better to consider changes now than to run out of money later. GreenPath does have a great budgeting worksheet that you can use, and we will include that in our follow-up email to everyone. You can also use the QR code that's on the page, and I am also going to put it into the chat so that you can access the link through the chat. So Catherine, as you're creating your retirement budget, what did you do to determine the likelihood that you'd be able to live off of it?
So again, Dawn, I think it's worth repeating. We actually tried to live off the forecasted budget before my husband retired, because I think as human beings we can fib to ourselves. So it was brutal. We were brutally honest, living off that budget. And again, I'd encourage everyone to do this. If you find that you've underestimated how much you need, you can always delay retirement to save a little more. Choosing to get a part-time job in retirement because you want the socialization or to keep busy is one thing, but having to go back to work to balance a budget is completely different. It can be really hard for some retirees because you're likely going to earn far less than you earn as a professional. So I think that's a good segue into our next topic. So Dawn, thank you for that first section. That was awesome. So what we're going to do now is we are going to look at investment options and risks, filling the gap. So let's start by putting some context around why investing is important. And I think this statement says it all. Either we continue to work for our money or we make our money work for us. Now, if this idea doesn't click for you, consider this question. How would you pay your bills without any paychecks for the next 6 months or even longer? That is in effect retirement. But the good news is, hopefully, we have the benefit of being able to plan when we retire and thereby plan to save and invest to replace our paychecks. Now, as we've discussed in the first part of the webinar, having a retirement budget is so important. It is key. In this section, we want to explore where we will get the money to support that budget. Now, most experts would say we need to replace 70 to 90% of our final pay. But truthfully, this is echoing Dawn again, you're the expert when it comes to your retirement budget. What's your percentage? I can't emphasize enough how important it is for you to know your number. For example, if you work remotely, you have no commuting expenses, you have no business dress expenses, but you have big plans for travel when you retire, your retirement budget may need to be higher than that average. But we have to start somewhere. So for today's example, let's take the average and say 80%. Using the average income from 2024, the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, that average was $60,580 a year. Now, if we're taking 80%, that would mean we need to replace $48,464 of income. For most of us, Social Security is an important part of our retirement income. So as of August 2024, the average Social Security check was $1,920 monthly. So that's $23,040 annually. This leaves us with a shortfall, as it shows on the slide, in our budget of $25,424. So where do we find the money to fill this gap in retirement when we no longer have a paycheck? This is the subject of the next few slides. So in this section of the webinar, we're going to review the different types of investment accounts that we can use to build retirement savings. Savings that are going to supplement our Social Security payments and give us the income we need to meet our budgeted needs. The number of and the different types of retirement account options can be a little daunting, but our goal today is to provide a general overview of these types of accounts and clarify which accounts are employer-based versus which accounts are for individuals and or small businesses and the self-employed. We're also going to review how the accounts may differ in relation to taxes. So per the slide, the accounts on the left are larger employer plans. Most have heard of the 401k. This is the account offered by the majority of for-profit companies. The lesser known 403b is the plan used by nonprofits such as GreenPath. That's the plan that Dawn and I have. And then there's a plan called the TSP. This is a thrift savings plan. This is for federal government employees. Now, you may likely know this, but the government does limit the amount we can contribute to our retirement plans each year. In the case of the 401k, 403b, and TSP, and their Roth equivalents, we'll get to Roth in a little bit, those limits for 2024 are $23,000 for anyone under 50, and $30,500 if you're over 50. Now, these limits are going to increase by $500 for 2025. So no, every year they're likely to change, so you need to do your homework. Now, in 2025, there's also a secondary increase. This has come about through the Secure 2.0 Act. For people aged 60 through 63, they can have a catch-up amount increase from $7,000 to $11,250. So a big change. Now, for smaller employers and self-employed individuals, there are three different plans: the SEP, the Simplified Employee Pension Plan, the Simple IRA, Savings Incentive Match Plan for employees, and the IRA, Individual Retirement Account. So just a few highlights. The SEP IRA is only employers can contribute to the SEP, very unique. The max contribution the employee can make is 25% of the employee's pay, and all employees must receive the same contribution. Now, as of 2023, there is also a Roth version of the SEP IRA. And again, we'll touch the Roth shortly. Now, as the name implies, employers must provide a match for the simple plan. A couple of other caveats for this plan: the company must have at least 100 employees. Have less than 100 employees, make sure I said that correctly, and there is no Roth option. Another key note: withdrawals or distributions from this plan, as they're commonly referred to, taken in the first 2 years, incur a 25% tax penalty instead of the typical 10%. The final plan that I want to mention is the IRA, the Individual Retirement Account. These accounts can be used by the self-employed or individuals with no access to an employer-based retirement plan. They can also be used to supplement an employer-sponsored retirement account if income allows. IRA contribution limits for 2024 are $7,000 for those under 50, $8,000 for those over 50. Another quick note for the IRA, when employees leave a company, they can also transfer or roll over their 401k, 403b, or TSP account balance into an individual IRA to be self-managed or managed by an investment advisor. Some employer plans actually allow employees to actually roll over their 401k after 59 and a half. Note, for ease, we're going to be sending you a copy of a recent GreenPath article summarizing some of the information we're sharing today. And in that newsletter, you're going to be able to click on a link to the recording as well. So just a heads up for that. It will be coming out after the webinar. So I previously mentioned that as of 2023, there is a Roth version of the SEP IRA. In fact, there are Roth versions of every plan with the exception of the simple IRA. But what is a Roth? Simply put, contributions to the traditional retirement accounts are made before tax. No tax is paid on the contributions or, say, the deposit to the accounts, and investments grow tax deferred. But tax is paid when we withdraw from these accounts, and those withdrawals are taxed at your regular income rate for that year. For Roth accounts, we pay tax on the money before we add it to the Roth account. Now, the investments still grow tax-free, but most importantly, as long as we hold the account for 5 years following our first contribution, no tax is due when we make withdrawals from the accounts in retirement, provided we're over 59 and a half. Now, for several reasons listed on this slide, and I appreciate it is a little bit of a busy slide, but many people choose the Roth accounts over regular tax-deferred accounts because when money is withdrawn from the tax-deferred accounts, the distribution, as it's called, counts as regular income. And higher income can come with some penalties, such as paying tax on Social Security, paying Medicare surcharges. Financial advisors can help you strategize on the best time to withdraw funds to try and avoid these penalties. But at 72, you are forced to take RMDs, required minimum distributions, from your retirement accounts. And these distributions can make it more challenging to avoid these penalties. And that's why forecasting your income out, knowing your budget, can really help you plan to avoid those penalties. So we've covered the various types of retirement accounts. Let's touch on the potential benefit of these plans, specifically the employer match. This match is part of your compensation plan. This is effectively free money. So before we dig a little deeper into this, do you know if your employer offers a match? If so, would you please share a yes in the chat? Also, do you know what the match is? So Dawn, I'm going to check in with you in a minute just so we can have a review of the responses. So typically the match is based on a percentage of the employee's income. So for example, an employer might match the employee's contributions up to 3%. Once you know this information, check your pay or retirement account statements to confirm you're getting the full match. Again, the match is free money. Please take it. This is part of your compensation package. Ideally, we should always save enough money to get that full match. Now, if you're worried that you can't afford the full match, start with contributing 1% and check the impact on your net pay. You may be pleasantly surprised that it may be more affordable than you thought. If so, increase to 2% or even the full match if you're comfortable. Typically, you can make these updates online. However, please check to ensure there are no restrictions on how often you can make changes to your contributions. Ideally, you want to automate these increases to your retirement plan each year when you get a raise. Some employers, GreenPath is an example of this, will automate these increases for their employees. We elect to do that. Again, there are limits on how much the government allows us to contribute to our retirement plans, and these can change each year. So you're going to want to check out the annual limits online on the government website provided. So before we move on, Dawn, what did we see in the chat in terms of responses?
Yes, the bulk of everybody said yes, they had a contribution. There was a couple that said no, and that typical ranged from 3% to as much as 10% for somebody. So yeah,
wow.
great.
I
Yeah.
wish I had something like that. That's very good. All right. So let's look at the next strategy for success, and that is to start saving early. Now, just to emphasize how important saving for our retirement is and how impactful saving early can be, we're going to compare three scenarios. I think seeing it on the screen can be really helpful. So, investor one saves $300 a month starting at age 25. Investor two saves $300 a month, but only starts saving at age 35. Investor three starts saving later at age 40, but is able to contribute a larger amount of $600 a month. So, assuming each of our investors retire at 65 and the investments grow at an average rate of 5% per year, let's check out the final balances on the accounts when our investors retire. So, check out these numbers. Our first investor who began saving at 25 ends up with a balance of about $447,000, almost $500,000. Meanwhile, our second investor who put off saving until she was 35 only has about $246,000 in her account at retirement age. Missing out on those 10 years of growth means that our second investor will retire with about 45% less than investor one. That's huge. The last investor, who started saving $600 per month at 40, although they wind up actually contributing an extra $36,000 into the account, more than investor one, they end up with just short of $354,000 at 65, so about $93,000 less than investor one. This obviously, the example is here to clearly show that starting to invest early is an important key to success. And again, this is finishing out this first section in terms of the retirement accounts. Remember, you're going to get a copy of our recent article as a summary of what we've discussed so far. So at the beginning of this section, I talked about making our money work for us. We've talked about our retirement savings accounts, okay? We do this through the investment choices that we make in those retirement accounts. Now, there are going to be different investment options available in your retirement savings plans. A money market, it's kind of similar to a savings account that receives a small amount of interest. Bonds that are offered by government and companies to raise capital also pay a fixed return, like a fixed amount of interest. Mutual funds, exchange-traded funds, and individual stocks allow you to invest in the stock market. The key thing to remember is that the different investment options come with different levels of risk. Money markets have low risk. Mutual funds, exchange-traded funds, and individual stocks in the stock market have a higher risks. Now, I want to give you a couple of examples of these types of risks. So, rising interest rates in 2022, this created unusual losses for bonds. Typically, they're seen as a low risk investment. So something to think about. For those working in the for-profit arena that receive company stock or can buy company stock at a discount in their retirement account, you really must be sure to check in with a financial advisor to ensure you're not overly invested in your company. Can you recover if the company you work for files for bankruptcy and its stock value goes to zero? It's very important to manage this risk. If you doubt this can happen, and I don't want to scaremonger, but check out the reports on Enron. So again, we want to make sure that we're diversifying our risk. To help actually reduce the risk, or investment speak, mitigate the risk, a lot of retirement saving plans offer what we call target dated funds. Per the definition on the slide, the fund is designed with a target date in mind. That date is typically the standard retirement date for the individual owning the fund. What generally happens is, as time moves closer to the target date, i.e. the person's retirement age, the fund automatically shifts from higher risk investments to lower risk investments. In practice, this means reducing the participation in high risk investments such as the stock market, and in many cases moving towards a larger portion of the portfolio to bonds or money markets. This type of retirement investment option is popular. It's a very popular default in many retirement plans. But what if you plan to retire early? Do you know if your retirement plan is investing in a target dated fund? And if so, does the date match your planned retirement date rather than the forecasted date for your birthday? Target date funds are popular as it's designed to be more of a set and forget type of plan. But even if you have this type of fund, we encourage you to meet with your financial advisor, the person who manages your retirement plan, at least on an annual basis. As your employer's retirement plan is likely to make up a significant part of your retirement nest egg, it's important to manage it well. So here's a short list of investing guidelines for you to consider. One is diversify your investments. Talk to your plan's investment advisor. Make sure that if you're investing in mutual funds, that those funds are not all investing in the same small number of stocks. That can happen. Also, as we saw in 2022, the stock market and bonds can go down as well as up. Now, when you're young, the market being down is like buying stocks on sale. It's great. But when you're older, you may not have time for the stock market to recover before you start to withdraw funds to live on in retirement. Withdrawing money from your retirement or from your investment accounts in a down market is called negative sequence of returns, and it can truly be detrimental to your account balance. So be sure to monitor your accounts. If you find it stressful to see your account going down, talk to your financial advisor about your risk tolerance. Recognize that you have your job and it's not likely managing your investments accounts. So get professional help as and when needed to adjust those investments. Again, our goal is to maximize return on our investments, but this webinar is Retirement 101. We don't have time to get into the nitty-gritty of investment strategies. But a great next step would be to contact the investment advisor assigned to your employer plan and review what are your current elections. You want to make sure they align with your retirement goals. Check out the historical returns for those investment funds. Do they put you on track to meet your goals? If not, talk with your financial advisor what adjustments you need to make. It's also important to check the fees charged for various investments because higher fees don't necessarily mean higher returns. But higher fees do mean that your money has to work harder to pay those fees. So for example, if the investment makes just 5% and your fee was 1%, that fee has just reduced your gains by a full 20%. So that's why this topic is really important. So don't be afraid to ask your advisor about fees versus returns. We've looked at contributing early, giving your investments time to grow and how advantageous that is. Taking loans or early withdrawals, on the other hand, not only reduce the amount you've saved for retirement, but they can also incur penalties and taxes, and these can be significant. Please get professional advice before considering taking a loan or an early withdrawal from a retirement account. Penalties and taxes for early withdrawals can be brutal. There can be exceptions to the tax penalty, but you need to get professional advice to be sure of your situation. If you're considering taking a loan or withdrawal from your retirement accounts, please take advantage of a free financial assessment with GreenPath. Let's help you explore options other than taking a loan or a withdrawal. I've spoken about meeting with a financial advisor several times during today's presentation. So I wanted to share some information about selecting a good financial advisor. You want to ensure they're licensed by checking the website www.finra.org. It's also important to know how they get paid. What are your costs? You should also ask about their qualifications and understand how your relationship will work. Do they offer regular check-ins in person or online? How do you get access to your statements? Will they reach out if and when they make changes to your investments? These are all good questions to ask when you're interviewing a potential financial advisor. So to close out this section, let's review some strategies for successful retirement investment. Obviously, primarily start early. Get your employer match and auto increase your contributions each year. When possible, max out those contributions to your retirement accounts. If you leave your current employer, don't withdraw your retirement savings. You have options. You can roll over your 401k money to a traditional IRA or to your new employer 401k plan. If you don't have an employer plan, you can contribute to a traditional IRA. Finally, and most importantly, avoid taking loans or making early withdrawals from your retirement plan. Not only will you miss out on the compounding gains, but there will be significant penalties and taxes. Dawn, I know that was a long section. Would you like to cover our final topic?
I would. Thanks, Catherine. That was some really great information. So as mentioned earlier, we can think of Social Security as a monthly paycheck in retirement, but it's important to note not everyone qualifies for Social Security, and those that do can receive varying amounts. The amount received will be based on income and contributions you have made to Social Security while working. You'll see these contributions on your paycheck, typically noted as FICA, and it stands for the Federal Insurance Contribution Act. There are other factors that can impact your Social Security benefits, and we're going to cover two significant factors in today's webinar: the age you retire, and if you're married, the option to take the spousal benefit. So according to the Social Security website, the average worker's Social Security replaces about 40% of pre-retirement income. But financial experts say you may need 70 to 80% of that pre-retirement income. Again, we've said it multiple times. What is your number? Check your retirement spending plan. So the average Social Security monthly payment is $1,920 per month. You can determine, what your benefits will be and what is your gap. You include this number in your budget worksheet so you can begin working on that. So to get Social Security, you must earn at least 40 Social Security credits to be eligible for those benefits. And you earn credits when you work and pay Social Security taxes. Since 1978, you can earn up to a maximum of 4 credits per year. So at a minimum, it will take 10 years of working to be eligible for Social Security. If you were born after 1960, you will receive full retirement benefits when you turn 67. So if you choose to take benefits early, the amount you will receive will decrease. So if you turn 62 in 2024 and decided to take your Social Security benefits, you would receive about 30% lower than you would have at your full retirement age of 67. On the upside, for every year you work past your normal retirement age, you can add about 8% per year to your projected full retirement Social Security check that was estimated at 67. However, you must start taking Social Security at 70. The decision of when to take Social Security isn't purely a monetary one. Consider if you're in general good health. Do you expect to live into your late 80s or 90s? If not, waiting may not make financial sense. Do you have a partner? Are you concerned about the impact of losing income of one partner later in life? Would waiting to take Social Security until age 70 help mitigate that risk? These are all the things to take into consideration, and you may benefit from discussing your goals with your financial advisor to get their input. So you may be wondering, what is a spousal benefit and why does it matter? So let me start by explaining what it is. So a spouse married for at least 10 years who has not worked or who has low earnings may be entitled to as much as half of the spouse's full benefit once their spouse is taking Social Security. This could be a great benefit for low-income partners or anyone that took a break from the workforce. The average monthly spousal benefit in April of 2024 was $911. One requirement is that a spouse must be at least age 62 or have a qualifying child in his or her care. And by a qualifying child, we mean a child who's under age 16 or who receives Social Security disability benefit. So Catherine, why might you be considering this option?
So I have a fairly unique situation. Well, and maybe someone online also has this, but I have pensions from the UK. Sadly, when I start receiving my pensions from the UK, my Social Security check is going to be reduced. So yes, quite profoundly. So I'm actually going to take the spousal. I'm going to retire a little earlier. I'm going to take the spousal benefit, and that will give me, as you mentioned, a lower amount of my husband's Social Security. But at least I will be able to take something out of the system before my regular pensions start paying, and that Social Security check kind of disappears into almost nothing.
Yeah, it sounds like a great plan for you. So there are a couple other things to note. the spousal benefit amount is based on the Social Security amount of their partner at full retirement age. So if they continue to work, increases from 67 to 70 are not included in that calculation. If you are divorced from a marriage that lasted at least 10 years, you may be able to get benefits on your former spouse's record. You'll want to talk with the Social Security Administration about that. So as Social Security can be a significant part of your retirement, it's important to get an estimate, confirm your retirement age, and regularly check your statements. So you can go to www.ssa.gov to get your estimate, and I put that in the chat. They likely are going to require some form of authentication in order for you to get logged in for the very first time. Most likely, they're going to mail you a code that you'll have to use, and you may not have immediate access to that estimate. So check your statements annually, ensure your income is being reported accurately, and you receive your full credit for every year that you've worked. And make sure that you're checking that as soon as you can and not waiting until later. You can also call 1-800-772-1213 with questions, but be aware that is not the Social Security jobs agent to help you maximize your Social Security check. They will, however, answer questions. If not sure which questions to ask, again, talk to your investment advisor. So when you're ready to apply for Social Security, you can go online to do that. So essentially, you apply for Social Security benefits about 4 months before you want to receive those benefits. No, applying for Medicare 3 months before your 65th birthday, regardless if you're planning to draw your Social Security or not. And again, you can go online through the ssa.gov site/apply, or you can call if you do have questions as you're starting to navigate through that. Now, if you're eligible for a pension, you'll also want to make sure you know what those benefits may be as you're preparing for retirement. So again, know your numbers and set up your goals accordingly. Check your retirement account, plan contributions, talk with your financial advisor about your investments.
The final reminder was to check your Social Security estimate, and you want to do this well ahead of time. So as we go to close out the webinar, just know that GreenPath employees, we're not financial advisors or tax professionals. GreenPath provides a variety of important services. They're designed to help our clients understand and work towards financial wellness. All of our basic financial assessment conversations are free and confidential. I like to repeat that part. All of our basic financial assessments are free and confidential. You and your family can take advantage of that free financial assessment to really take a look at your budget. If you're not currently meeting your retirement savings goals, we can discuss your spending plan and maybe help you find those extra dollars. And we can certainly we do specialize in helping people explore options for dealing with debt. GreenPath also provides a couple of worksheets and guides that may be helpful to get started. We have a budgeting worksheet that Dawn shared earlier. We also have an aligning priorities workbook. I'm going to share these with all the registrants of the webinar. Or you can actually go find them right now at my.greenpath.com website. We'll also let you share the guide to understanding your credit as well. We also have some additional resources in our online Learning Lab Plus. This is our online digital portal. So 2 courses that relate to our topic today, making the most of your money. Again, you can find that on mygreenpath.com, or you can scan the QR code that you can see on the screen now. A second course that relates again to the topic is the aligning priorities, deciding which expenses are most important to you. Again, these are free resources, so please check out the Learning Lab on my.greenpath.com and take advantage of these.
And we will get that out to you as soon as we can. So thank you, everyone.
Absolutely. Take care and thank you for attending today. And don't forget our survey.
Yes, please. Okay, bye.